afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Shine HR Live. I'm your host Vasundhara Sokti, and I'm here with stellar speakers for a thought-provoking debate on AI in recruitment and pre-employment assessment. But before we begin, let's listen to our VP Marketing, Mr. Vijay Nair, Shine.com, for an opening remarks to our esteemed speakers and audience. Over to you, Mr. Nair.
Thanks, Vasundhara. Hi, good afternoon, all, and I welcome all of you to the next exciting session and edition of Shine HR Live. A warm welcome to all the esteemed panelists, each of whom is an industry leader, a stalwart in the HR domain. We're looking forward to an enriching session ahead with insights and learnings that are going to be shared. I would also like to invite all the HR professionals who have registered with us and are participating in today's session. It's our endeavor at Shine to provide more such engaging initiatives for the HR fraternity. At Shine, we have been at the forefront of many industry-defying initiatives for the past 15 years as a technologically advanced job portal and as a career management platform. We play the role of an effective enabler to all your hiring needs with a rich candidate data pool of 4.5 crores to over 75,000 job applications happening every day. Be it to reduce your cost per hire, be it to increase your efficiency with a quick talent sourcing, get more responses on your job postings, or to find smarter ways to acquire the right talent, be it the B2B services, assisted hiring, employer branding, hackathons, and all the other services that we cater to. We also have launched our Shine Talent Insights report, which is a quarterly report which carries the insights from employers and candidates' perspective both alike. At Shine, we are eager to meet all your hiring needs and your requirements, and also to assist you in your quest to succeed together as a partner, and looking forward to serving all your talent requirements, right? Now, coming back to today's session, what a day to discuss advancements and use of technology when we are just 24 hours back, we've landed on moon, right? So still a very goosebumps giving moment, but I think it leads in well into today's discussion and conversation. And our esteemed panel will be discussing on two of the topics. First being AI in recruitment, will it lead to any bias? And second being pre-employment assessment, validity and fairness in doing so. So I'm excitedly looking forward to the session and, hoping that each one of you has more insights that you get from this.
Thank you, Vijay, for setting the context. How is right? You have a candidate walking into your office, and all your thermal imaging system captures the image and says, "Hey, look, Satish Rajaratnam is walking into your office. He's got X amount of experience. He's been HR. He's been doing this and that." And by the time he or she walks into your panelist, the panelist has the entire persona of Satish Rajaratnam with him or her on the hand. I think that's where we're heading towards. It's not becoming like a science fiction story, like the Star Trek type. You widen your picture, you get to see everything about you. That's the power of social, right? All portals out there, everything's interlinked. Your ATS, picks up data. It tries to kind of put in all the algorithms or heuristics to bring in user perspective. Where is this candidate coming in from, which company, what's the tenure, what's the experience, what's the specialty, what's the certificate, and it creates a persona by saying, look, this individual falls under this persona, your JD is this, so the closest match is about 80-90%, so you can go ahead with the interview, right? Guys, all this is no more a story, it's no more a narrative, it is happening practically whilst we are talking in most of the organizations, right? With the M&L panelists, we want to quickly set the context. AI and its usage, right? Just with one use case that I would want to move on to the panelists as well. We've started using heuristics or algorithm to kind of bring in candidates' perspective into a JD match, right? So this has gone beyond parsing. Folks in recruitment would definitely know about this. It's not about picking up keywords, but it's gone beyond. We've started doing. If someone says, I've done HR in the last 5 years. The conversation AI will start asking, what in HR have you done? What's your specialty? And you start answering. Based on your answer, the AI would start forming more questions to deep dive into your specialty and SME quote unquote, a functional AI. That picks up the answers, matches the answers to the JD and says, is he or she fitment to the HR leader that you're looking for, or an assistant manager, or a comp ben head, or a recruitment lead, and so on and so forth. So that's the power of AI that most of us have started seeing big now. Having said that, the second part of the discussion, which is also very interesting, is about the pre-assessment part of it, right? How is that happening? Is it helping us to negate fake impersonation, proxies, and so on and so forth? Is another tangential view that we're going to also hear out from the panelists as well, right? So, having set the context, we're going to go to our panelists to bring in their perspectives, their use cases, their analogies, or also their aspirational tooling or platforming that they would like to see and how to progress forward as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining this webinar. I'm sure all of you will pick up some important points that is relevant to you all. So, Satish, to answer your question, I come from a company which is spread across India. We have in the remote parts of India, Tier 3 and Tier 4 India. And we have +2 and diploma candidates who join us. And the primary, if you're an NBFC, you're in the business of collecting money. So when you need to collect money, there are multiple things that you look at. You're taking a guy for 20,000 salary, and he's having, in the month end, he's got about 1.5 lakh cash in his hand. So what is it that he's going to do? What is this? What kind of a personality he is in terms of how does he handle cash? So when we recruit somebody, we also need to look at what are the values that he holds close to him, other than his culture fit and a performer and so on and so forth. So to me, what has been the single most takeaway when I used AI in my talent acquisition engine is I am able to get candidates who are actually fitting into this culture. To a large extent, there are deviations. I wouldn't say it's 100% fit, but at least it's allowing me to reduce the gap, in terms of who's the guy who's going to fit into a TVS credit ecosystem. That's the most important thing. Having said that, AI has the potential to be good, and also at times it is. I think it's also an output of I call it as GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. What is it that you're training your machine to read? That's very important. So unless the input is clean, what the output cannot be clean. So we have to continuously keep refining it. It's not that we put one model and we just forget about it, because the ecosystem also is changing, and we need to keep training the model also for that. So that's something that we've been continuously doing, and I think that cannot stop. That's the thing about AI. And of course, the time and the tag, the turnaround time, and so on and so forth, and the number of unproductive time that we have, people doing repetitive work has reduced a lot, which I think all of us know it. I mean, I don't have to talk about that.
To get the perfect fit almost most of the time. And it saves a lot from a turnaround time perspective to get them actioned on the job as well. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to go round robin, no chronology of order, so pardon me for that. Let me start with Abhinav Mishra. If you can.
Sure. Thank you, Satish, and thank you all. It's wonderful to be on this platform today, and a very interesting topic and very close to my heart, because in the past, I've had the opportunity to build 2 platforms, machine learning based platforms, infusing AI into it in the recruiting space. So, to a large extent, I think I understand, what are the challenges we face in training the data and stuff. But I think what AI and machine learning algorithms have significantly transformed the landscape of talent acquisition, and mostly by streamlining a lot of processes, enhancing decision making, and overall improving the efficiency of the recruiter and the entire recruiting lifecycle. Now, however, their integration into this domain also brings about a lot of challenges related to fairness, transparency, as Jaya was saying. Bringing in those fairness, transparency, and bias-free decision making, and that requires a lot of consideration. And to give you a perspective about how we have used AI in a certain scenarios is one of the things a recruiting professional always worry about is the a very realistic use case is the joining ratio. Is the candidate going to come and join you? And that has been the nightmare during the time of great resignations, and it continues even so. Now, what we've done is we have used personalized communication chatbots, using AI, and we keep sending a lot of communication out to the candidates. So that's their playground where they can come, they can interact with the ICERT. The company that I work for, ICERT, is they can come, they can interact with the recruiters, they can interact with a lot of contents that we have put in there, and basis how they are reacting to each and every notification that we push, how much time they're spending out there. There's a lot of data that we collect, and eventually we train the model, AI model that we developed in-house. We train the model to find the propensity check. What are the likelihood of this person joining your organization? And this also includes tracking their online activity on if they are following my company on social media. Are they liking the post, are they resharing the post, and so on. So there are various those accesses that we have defined, basis which we take into consideration while coming up to finding the propensity of a candidate joining the organization. But I think along with that, the training data remains a big challenge, training the data being bias free. And I'll take a moment to refer to one of the recent things which has happened to the world, the movie Barbie, which came up, and I was trying to play around with it. Very interestingly, I have a paid subscription of Delhi, which gives you image outcomes. And when I said, get me the best picture of Barbie, you would, what I was actually expecting out of it is that, of course, it will give me the Barbie which has been out there. But then the way the training data have been fed in creating this Barbie as an image was always white. I could never get a brown or a black or a different color Barbie girl. Now, that's very interesting when you put AI into recruiting perspective. Are you negating the fact that you are biased towards a certain color, a certain race, a certain anything? So with that, I'll take a pause, but I think it has both pros and cons. We use it to the best of our ability, but if we keep training the data, and we also tell the humans who are using it about how and why is this happening. I think humans can also put in a lot of intelligence into it, that instead of doing this, you should start doing this, and that way the training data gets a little better.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's great to be here among you all. So I'm currently leading people analytics and talent intelligence in West Global, which is a product engineering services organization. And my role with talent acquisition or recruitment has always been, kind of like an enabler, not direct, but again, more like a catalyst that enabling efficient as well as strategic and targeted recruitment through data, through analytics, as well as, how we interpret that data, where are we using those data points, etc. So please do take into consideration, that background or that context when I share my thoughts. I agree very much with the thoughts shared so far by Jayashubha and Avinav. And what I feel from my side is, as an industry, as a recruiting industry, we are still in the very early stages in terms of usage and implementation, as well as how many organizations are using AI or ML-based solutions in their hiring strategies. So I came across, a survey by SSHRM, which said that less than 50% of organizations in India are specifically using some form of AI in their HR or in their recruiting strategies. And but yes, another 40% do plan to implement some sort of AI or ML-based solutions in the coming years as well. So we are going there, and certainly it should be adopted more as well. I think AI as a technology have uses across a number of areas. So for example, automation. We all have talked about that. It can be applied for sourcing, screening a larger talent pool, and bringing it down to a smaller talent pool that we have to shortlist from. More personalization as well. Most organizations nowadays have their own websites, career websites basically, and candidates have their login profiles, right? So we can basically personalize more through the use of AI, these logins, these candidate pages. But as everyone said, there are certainly challenges. One challenge, for example, is as of now, for example, AI cannot replace the human empathy and the contextual knowledge that people bring as well, right? And something that was pointed out by Jayasubha, the base data set that is being actually used to train the AI, that has to be continually improved as well. So just as an example, from our own organization. So we could when it comes to volume recruitment, we can certainly use AI to widen or shorten the gap between what's our talent pool and our required number of openings. But when it comes to mid-level or senior level hiring, that's where we need to be very precise, right? So AI can certainly tell us that, okay, according to our requirements, all the keywords are there in this CV, right? But it has failed to actually capture that this certain person, he actually changed jobs 4 times in 2 years. So that is something that might not be so much of a fit for us, right? So the underlying data certainly needs a lot of work through continuous improvement, etc. And there are also this I would say news going around, right? That it will replace recruiters, but not so much actually. But probably we'll have to aim for is, the role of recruiters might change, from being more transactional and operational. It has to be more strategic, where they are talent advisors, and let AI-based solutions do, the transactional or the repetitive work, right? So those are my thoughts as of now, Satish.
Great to be here. So Saurabh Bansal here from Hilti representing talent acquisition. Okay. So I'll share the optimism of many of my panel members, and I want to give a context about our own industry and how we are using AI. Right? So I come from the construction industry, and we are dealing in very niche specific equipments for the industry to make construction better. And it's nice that Abhinandan spoke about how this can be used for volume hiring. I want to build a case of how we are using this for hiring in our niche roles. Ultimately, we are hiring for B2B sales, and we want people who can be successful with our customers and solve their issues, right? And so I'll just take a step back and talk about recruitment in general, and then how AI has helped us and how AI can help other organizations. TA, as all of the people on this panel know, that it's ultimately a volume game. Recruitment teams spend countless hours searching for the perfect candidate, right? And evaluating thousands and thousands of candidates is not possible. And hence you have to make some choices. In the traditional techniques, you would rely on some proxies, to gain that role fitment. So whether it is experiences or competencies, are you from the right institute? Are you having the right experiences, right? And what AI has helped us do, is that instead of just tapping those regular pools that we always tap, spread the pool wide and see and find, use this AI based platform that we are using, where through a game and simulation, we are able to judge the real job relevant skills, and it is throwing up candidates that we would have otherwise never looked at, right? So ultimately, when we talk about the issue of fairness and bias, I really see, and I really, I really resonate with the concerns that people have said around, the bias that it can bring. But is it really fair? If I talk about fairness, is it really fair that only because you have hired for people with a certain experience, only you hire those people? Keywords are our bread and butter, right? And if the candidate has not worded the experience correctly, that CV can get overlooked. That is something that AI can change, right? So that's really the promise that AI can deliver, right? So while I see, and I'm really resonating with the valid concerns on perpetuating biases, ultimately, it is also creating a very level playing field, where it is screening resumes at a pace that humans can never match, and every candidate gets an equal footing with AI, right? Overall, one of the things that as a takeaway, that is an immediate ask. I'm now talking about what is it my ask from AI. I think currently the vendors that we work with, they are already talking about generative AI and integrating data from that is already existing on different platforms and bringing it to the surface. I think Satish, you mentioned it in your opening address as well, where the relevant qualifications are readily available to you, which may not be as readily available in the earlier traditional approach. But I think that the real promise will be that it is not just taking the data that already exists, but it is actually able to do that first level connect. And I've already come across solutions like this. In tech HR, there were a lot of vendors that are providing solutions like this, where they're able to do a first level connect with the candidate and actually ask those questions and get that rich data back to you, so that then you are also, in a way, you are actually able to interview thousands and thousands of candidates and find that gem, that rare gem that all of us are really looking for, right? On the risks part, as I already said, I share my concern on biases, and that is something that we should actively, try and avoid. However, my biggest concern as an HR professional would be how my data is being used. Where does my data lie? Because ultimately, am I using the data and am I using the AI model, or are my responses being used to train a larger model and the data is not owned by me? So I would definitely have a lot of concerns around data privacy.
Before coming over to the role of AI in talent acquisition as on date, I think I will just take a few 2 minutes to just do a quick recap of what AI has been the journey. So automation, particularly HRMS, I think last 25 years that I have been there, it's always been there, and that's something which was there. What was touted for pre-pandemic as AI, I'm sorry to use the word touted, but I would say that was nothing but shorn of verbiage. It was only about a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP at best. This is what was the pre-pandemic AI. Now, during the pandemic, that is a time when the pandemic actually revolutionized because of the challenges in employee adoption of AI. The pandemic forced people during work from home, to go for the Zoom calls, Teams calls. And we were so fortunate just prior to the pandemic, we had done the DMS as well as the SharePoint aspects. So that helped us participate in the tenders and everything. So now, post pandemic, it is that really, truly, as you mentioned also, that one of the panelists did mention, he mentioned that generative AI has been there, and this is the AI, I would say, certainly. For example, OpenAI's Chat GPT, if you use Bard, can make you good presentations. It's only after that. Now, within the TA domain also, I think the first thing is that in sourcing, yes, the role has been good. In selection, I am really skeptical. It will take some time, quite some time in the selection process. In sourcing, it has been a good help. Even prior to that, if you see, that earlier those inverted commas had to be put in the job portals, which had been replaced by the mandatory field. That itself helped so much. It's easier to just click on the button also. That the more accuracy came in the search part of it, and the CVs were better off. Now, whether AI is doing it or it's just the method change, that also matters sometimes, because probably the AI needs to learn a lot right now from the behavior of recruiters. Yes, the developer does have, but that is where the concerns come also. The developers' biases, predilections, prejudices, they would also certainly, like some examples given, they would also creep in to the AI. So how to be wary of that? With this, I would say that AI certainly, one thing which it has done is that the first level of work outside of TA, in general, I would mention this, that is something which can certainly be replaced. A worker may not be an employee actually may not be needed for the first level of work. So the first level, though it does not have a persona, if you tell Chat GPT to give you anything, it's so fast, it's magic, it's beautiful, I would say. Only thing is that it does not have a persona of its own. You can imbue your personality in it. So that's one part. Now coming to TA, I would say the integration of Chat GPT or any other AI with the APIs, whether they are there for Naukri.com or ChatGPT, for example, uses data till November 2022 only. And also it does not, have the APIs nor the internet connectivity generally. So till the time that happens, unless maybe I have not got educated myself on it, I think only then the real results of sourcing will come, like they have come on any subject. If you ask Chat GPT, and if you ask Wikipedia, if you ask Google. So that's the difference which has come. It's more focused on RMS as part of the HRMS. I think the AI certainly, as the bots are there, it is going to get better. Now I'm come to the wish list within the TA part, more of a wish list, and some part we have done. What at Apar Industries, we are the market leader in transformer oil in India and the third largest in the world. We are the world's largest power transmission conductor manufacturers in the world globally. And so what we have done at APAR is certainly, one is we have sent an email to all the employees, simply please download ChatGPT, start using it. Nothing to download, also just go to the website, create your login, and then start using it. And Bard, it makes very nice presentation. The second thing on talent acquisition, I think, is what it could do. The wish list is analytics will certainly get much better. The industry mapping projects that we do on the candidates, that is certainly going to be far better and faster. What it may not do, the other implications would be that, it can be highly impersonal, so the role of HR will increase. And in selection, certainly, I think those insights, those subtle aspects of personality, the preferences, choices, and the good fit, I think that is a long way to go. But I think AI, or to sum it up, I would say is going to really make it much faster, much better for us. But at this stage, I think it just started.
Let me start with a small story. Okay, it's you can call it a joke, you can call it a story, whatever you want to call it. So there was a cook. There was a cook in a very famous restaurant in India. Okay, he was 25 years old. His father was cook in the same restaurant. His grandfather was cook in the same restaurant. So they had been basically bawarchi or cook for last 7, 8, 10 generations. Okay. One day somebody asked him that what if I give you $25,000 billion? Without a hesitation for even a second, the cook responded that every day I will come to the restaurant to cook food in different cars. So probably that is the state of affair when we talk about talent acquisition and AI. The real question is not whether AI is good enough to solve our talent acquisition problem. The real question is, are we good enough to adopt AI, to actually leverage AI? Just taking it a point further is, most of the time that I've been seeing with my colleagues or even within my organization, we are not like great. Most of the places we talk about looking at existing process and how do we change that process a bit by AI or technology or analytics. I don't think anywhere we are looking at whether that process itself is required or not. It's like, I want to do cooking, I'll come to cook in car, but do I really still need to be a cook? We are talking about how do we schedule interviews better. AI has abilities that you actually do not need to take interviews. Whether we are ready to adopt it to that level, whether we are ready to review our own processes that well, whether we are ready to have that kind of culture of adopting technology, are the more difficult questions to answer. Is AI capable of doing it? Absolutely, yes. Just let's take a parallel example, and that's where real fun starts. The closest other function to talent acquisition is sales. Sales is the closest another function to talent acquisition. And look at the progression that sales processes have seen in last 10 years, starting from door-to-door cold calling and continuous calling, and then maybe conversion of a particular sale to the whole digital sales. Compared to that progression, maybe talent acquisition progression through artificial intelligence or machine learning is relatively much slower, and there is a lot of scope. What probably we at CSB Bank are attempting to do, because our current problem statements are specific to quality, cost, and speed, because we are growing pretty fast. We have created a model wherein a frontline hiring can be done without a single click of a button or mouse by anybody. And through that, in 1 month, 1.5 months, we could actually hire 800 people, wherein not a single click was pressed by anybody. It was completely through in-house built program and coding, which had not only AI, but also had analytics, some amount of technology, and process revamp. Some part of process revamp. So that is where we have seen and we have tested the success. The good part is there has not been any delta in the performance or stability of
between two groups, one group which was hired in this particular way and which another group which was hired in a conventional way. So at least with the limited data set, I don't see there is any impact on the differentiation between two type of hiring. Correct. So this has been a recent use case. When we talk about evaluation, I have certain views, but probably I would reserve those views when we move to our second topic on the assessments or pre-screening assessment. There has been some discussion on the biases as well, and everybody has been right primarily on that. It's like I'm fond of Marvel movies. I watch Avengers and Captain America. So Captain America had that super soldier serum. They say that serum just increases whatever you have within. Right. Same way, if your decisioning are biased, must learn that. If your decisionings have historically been rejecting, let's say, women for sales role, your machine would learn to reject women for sales role or give that rating. But over the period of time, that gets balanced, provided you are closing the loop by feeding in performance data back to the machine. Then machine starts learning that, okay, performance is coming better, and hence gradually it will tweak, slightly a longer process, but the right process still. And that is the method of removing bias from your machine learning process.
Hello everyone, my name is Neha Vyas, working with Pattern Technologies. About adopting AI, as Pattern is having offices, 22 offices, global offices, and everyone has a different approach working on a recruitment front. So it becomes difficult. Like I would like to take one example of Amazon. Means I'm taking an old example, but Amazon scrapped their AI recruitment tool in 2018 because they found that their tool was biased. And as actually it's taking data from the past. So it got biased towards females because previously it was hiring more the people who are hired on senior management were male. So it's just working on the keywords, other things. So bias is always be there in recruitment side, and getting a tool which can fit all the requirement, it's gonna take time. So till then we have to work collectively. Humans also work with the AI to keep checking it and keep giving it the updated. Thanks.
On with a very lighter note, now that we're talking about the ethical part of it, the better side of AI, there are AIs that can write profiles which will get passed through any AI systems as well. So for this is like a Newton law, right? For any action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there are tools that is also trying to break through the same AI engine model that you're talking about. So I guess both are running like a parallel, but yeah, it's for us to kind of grapple on over a period of time. Just to kind of manage that part of it, Neha, if I were to turn on to you from an assessment standpoint, I know we spoke about EQ, the human side of it. Just to go further down from a pre-selection or an assessment standpoint, right? What are your views? And you know, if you can talk about what Abhi spoke about, what he had created, and what tools are available in terms of. Or I think Vastav, you said click of a button, everything is done. All of those are using engines that assess the incumbent to a large extent, right? What are your views around using tools to assess people on technology, functionality, behavioral, leadership, all aspects of it, right? And where do you think, how valid are those? I know there are a couple of use cases that came up. Jayashoda spoke about high secondary and diploma holders. They've gotten people selected, but again, culture is something that we need to test it out. So, Neha, your views around using pre-assessments for candidates?
I have tried pre-assessment tools, and definitely it's been a very helpful thing, because when we going for the campuses and when we are hiring on bulk, it is always useful. But when it's come to the critical requirement, like you are hiring for a senior level, their keywords will not work, and same kind of assessment will not work. And plus, people don't have time for the assessment. Their human interaction is required. Now we have AI which can screen resumes, which can go to ask the candidate all the questions also. There are many bots available. There are many linguistic programs are available. So if you want candidate is good with a good English speaking, this program will keep changing the question, and it will be more like a communication for the candidate. It will give you the assessments. So these things are good for a certain level of hiring. For up to a mid level, you can use that. But for the senior level, definitely human interaction and human is more important, that part. But yeah, it's helpful. So you don't need to work on the bulk. And as we are working on IT and non-IT both. So in IT, definitely keywords can help you out. But when you go to non-IT, keywords are not the right thing to look into.
Let me tell you what I have experienced in my company when I adopted AI for mass hiring. First of all, it's not like, the first time I do it or the second time I do it, it's perfect. It takes a lot of time and effort, and we have made a lot of blunders, no doubt about it. But the thing is, how fast we are able to look at it and come back, and correct it and go ahead is what is important. And also sometimes what happens is the ecosystem also affects. Like, for example, I launched this AI hiring tool pre-COVID. During COVID, we didn't do much of hiring. But after COVID, when I adopted the same model, there was a lot of difference, because the model that threw up good candidates were actually not good candidates. I mean, when I look back at their performance. So that actually taught us that this is not how it is. You need to keep, the ecosystem also is evolving. Continuously keep looking at it and changing it. Otherwise, you're going to, don't sit and just sit on it. You have to be running along with the model. So that's my learning. So that's what I would think is my experience in TVS Credit. And like Neha said, it's very good for mass hiring, but for critical and niche hiring, I think the human being is the best AI. I mean, nothing can substitute that.
Yeah, absolutely. So any unidimensional assessment would not work. You need to have your personality, sales aptitude, your all the components which are related to your quant and reasoning, and everything needs to be in the tool. Even functional elements pertaining to that particular role or that particular assessment. And I think the assessment need to be across level. If we do not put assessment at senior level, that is because of our own limitations that we may not end up putting it. If they are put in a real good way, they can be useful, and I have a very defined logic to establish that. Most of the time, the reservation of taking assessment at senior level comes because of two things. Either it is pure ego, that I am not a junior resource, why should I take assessment? Or it is coming from lack of time, that the person doesn't have time. The second issue is simpler, because nowadays you can actually have assessments which are very short, but still very effective. The first piece requires a better mindset, and if organization has, and that is where your own value system and which direction as an organization we intend to go comes into picture. If organization wide we want that technologically agility, and we want to move in that journey, then I think all the leaders who are joining organization, they need to have that clear mindset that yes, biases are not good, fairness is important, there are processes, there has to be machine method of evaluating things, and they should not ideally take it as an ego item. Only thing is they need to be explained it correctly, that this is the mindset of the organization and this is the vision, and hence this is what we do. I myself have hired people not at CXO level, but one down to CXO for sure, wherein people had taken assessments, right? So that is one part. Second, when I'm talking about assessments, and when this group, I also would like to bring it here that when we talk about assessments, there is one is in very naive language, if I may say, exam. One is exam, correct? There are so brilliant tools available nowadays that wherein I as a human being is taking interview of somebody through a virtual channel, there is an AI bot which is continuously giving me triggers. It works as my assistant, because that bot is also observing the candidate and is giving inputs to me that check the confidence, maybe not very sure, right? Those kind of brilliant tools are available in market, wherein even if I'm taking assessment, it's also an evaluation. So if I'm evaluating a candidate, that bot is continuously guiding me. If I need to probe something, I need to ask certain question, I need to check certain personality types which person is demonstrating. So that is also use of AI into assessments, right? Which absolutely can be used even for your CXO level of hire.
I'm completely sold out to assessments for the last many years, and more than 2 decades certainly. And so let's begin with my experience in my present company, that is Apar Industries Limited, on the psychometric tests. So we have not gone for 16 PF or MBTI. The only reason, it's not that it is lesser than any other test. The reason is that I think that what Vastav touched upon, the questions are too many and it may take time, particularly for senior level. Now, one point is, for across all levels, we do aptitude tests and the psychometric test, at least, if not any other. And this is including the CEO's selection for our different businesses, which we do. So that is across levels. However, there has been some experience, which has been there. So we have gone for Thomas assessments, Thomas profiling, because it has got 24 questions. So it is easier, faster. One of the learnings I had was that in one of our businesses, my HR head, and so I head the group HR. So in that sense, that each business has its own HR head who reports to the CEO of that business. So he and the business head, they were in the course of a discussion, I came to know these candidates have been rejected because in the psychometric test, the score is less than 3.5. No, I was aghast. Why this is not correct? So when we are using an assessment test, it is clearly, for example, in psychometric tests or any other behavioral test, it is clearly written like a disclaimer or something that you need to read or interpret the report in conjunction with the interview method. So you need to definitely corroborate your findings, what are there in the report. It is very helpful to ask leading questions, where the concerns could be, where the strength of the candidates could be. However, you can't have a gate there that be higher than this and lower than this. I mean, there are no right or wrong answers anyway in the behavioral sciences or in the psychometric test, for example. So then we immediately corrected that, and then we had different sessions and got all our HR recruiters as well as the leaders trained and certified all over again in the psychometric test, so that this kind of a conceptual error doesn't happen again. So this is one thing, but they are really valid because it helps you understand the personality type. For example, the personal profile analysis. If I talk particularly, suppose, about the Thomas profiling side, of course, all the tests are very good, including 16 PF, MBTI. They're all very good tests, projective tests also, which I have used. So the good fit between the personal profile analysis and the job, which is there, which was HGA earlier, now the job part, which the report is called job, wherein the hiring manager fills in the responses to the question, what is the kind of a candidate he or she would want on the behavioral trait side. And then the good fit between them, interpretation report, job comparison report also come. I think it is of tremendous value. One thing you could say, the risk is that if I'm faking as a candidate, I'm writing the wrong answers. If I do that beyond a point, then also these softwares, they do have an internal check if coherence is deviating from a certain delta. So there also they would say this is a wrong report. So I think that's where it is very useful, and this has been my learning from the anecdote I shared. The other learning, there is an aptitude test of metal that we use, again across levels. Not that any test is perfect or any is better or less. That is something very subjective discussion. But we have zeroed in on this test. So over the years, we found that it is a half an hour test, and the many candidates were not able to, particularly the senior level candidates, found it difficult. So then we realized maybe a class 10th or 12th, mathematics, science or commerce student would do it far better maybe, because they are so current, or engineering students, or while they are studying it, their speed is there, their practice is there, So what we did is we have increased. Now Mercer would not change the test. They said, okay, you have lesser, like in the IITs or the IIM, the cutoff is very low, so you have that cutoff as low for that. So what we said, okay, that's okay, but they agreed to finally increase the time duration from 30 minutes to 45 minutes for the aptitude test, and that is giving us better results. Now, again, what I will reiterate what I said. These are to be used in conjunction with the interview method, any of the assessment tests. Otherwise, it's a harakiri, I would say, not less than that. Because no candidate is good or bad. It's about a good fit, and there are biases in everything. So we need to eliminate to the extent possible.
Brilliant views shared by all the panelists. The way I look at pre-employment tests, they exist on a continuum, and the closer and closer the test is to the real work that the person is expected to perform, the higher the validity and the more it can be used as a selection criteria, right? And the farther and farther away it is from the actual role, and it is just assessing an abstract competency and trying to assess potential or personality, the more and more it is a validity. It is an exploratory tool to find out more about an opportunity to find out more about the candidate, but may not be a selection criteria, right? So I'll come to skill-based tests because that's a specific question. I think that tests that are being used in the IT industry, and I've used them myself, where a real coding platform is there, and in real time it is able to assess what is the coding quality. That is something that is very close to the role that the person is being hired for, and hence very high validity and definitely should be used for selection. I think I'll just take a very wayward example. It's not, because we are talking about all kinds of tests and not just online tests here, right? If you're hiring a musician, ultimately you have to listen to the music, right? And that's how people do it. They'll have somebody behind a curtain to eliminate that bias. So again, taking to that point of bias and seeing that ultimately are they really producing the kind of music that you want them to produce, and then lift the curtain and see what job or gender that person is, right? So it is ultimately, that's my criterion, and hence the test that we have invested in, for example, that I spoke about, the AI based platform, that is closer to, let's say, a typical MCQ test would be, right? In terms of assessing the job readiness, and hence that gives us a higher level of validity. I'll come to the personality inventories now. Again, some very interesting points made by Sanjay. For us, as part of our people development, people philosophy, we believe in a strengths-based approach where we believe that every individual brings a different perspective and a different their own strengths to the role. So the way you like to use these kinds of tools is to use it as an exploratory tool to find out more about the candidate, but we do not use this as a selection criteria at all.
Sure. To give you a context, I have been using these assessments platform for a while now. And I think wonderful things have been spoken already, the pros and cons of using skill-based assessment platforms. I have found it useful, but as Saurav said, only in conjunction with a real-world interview experiences. Now, there are a lot of stereotyping and unconscious bias which comes in, even if even if you do not want them, the design of the test, the choice of assessment criteria, the interpretation of results can be influenced, can all be influenced the bias by the test creator, for example. Now, one of the ways I've used these assessment platforms in the past is typically to find the competencies and, more importantly, the proficiency levels, at which I would really like to hire the candidate. Now, not everyone is, in a volume game, you would typically use assessment to weed out a lot of candidates, select a few and then move on for interviews and other processes for them. But think about this, a test that evaluates assertiveness might disadvantage introverted individuals, who possess other valuable skills. Now, what I've done in the past is, I'll give you an example. There was a candidate that I was trying to hire from Delhi College of Engineering. Now, he failed the test. But 3 months down the line, this candidate again, came through a reference, high recommendation. So we thought, let's give this person a chance. Now, it was out of anxiety that he was an introvert candidate. Out of anxiety, time anxiety, and all the people, 100 people sitting in a classroom taking the test for getting an interview with the previous company, he could not do well. But when we started giving him problems in the interview, whiteboarding stuff, and making him write algorithms right in front of us, boy, this guy turned out to be a genius, Satish. And we kept increasing the difficulty level of the question, and you would wonder, even as a fresher, we pegged him at a higher salary than we hired their associates from. So at time there is a lack of context as well. The pre-employment test, it often lack the context that a comprehensive interview process provides. So I would use it, but very cautiously. It's not going to be the sole reason if to select or to reject a candidate. I would use this in parallel with an interview process and take things forward from there.
So Satish, I think it goes back to the kind of role that we are hiring. Okay. So there would be some, for example, management-related roles where some pre-assessment tools could be very effective as well as useful while trying to identify certain behavioral traits or certain skill sets competencies, right? Like, let's say, for example, numerical abilities or analytical capabilities, okay? Even leadership styles, To understand all those, I think some of these tools, and nowadays we have many different kind of tools actually in the market. And this is one area where AI has actually penetrated a lot, right? Compared to other areas within, let's say, talent acquisition or recruiting. And we also have tools where we can actually design the questionnaire, or the design the format according to the role needs of the role. Okay, so I'm not saying that these tools should be there for our ultimate judgment, but certainly they can add to the evaluation process, even the selection process, right? And when it comes to IT or tech-based roles, that's where it could be a bit challenging, right? Because many times we do not have to do so much with, let's say, the leadership style or the management style, etc. Many times it comes back to the actual tech skills that the person has, right? So in those cases, I think it should be a mix of such assessments plus a tech interview. But in many other cases, mainly non-tech roles, I think these are a crucial part of the overall evaluation and selection process.